Okay, so when we're talking about consciousness, we should also talk about the role of the ego. And I'm sure you've heard what the ego is, but I still want to cover it in this video series. So the ego is very much this human part of who you are, and you very much identify with the ego. And what you put out there in the world is very much your ego. Uh, so, like I said, the ego is very much this human part of you. It wants to survive, it wants to thrive on this planet, and it will do whatever it can to uphold that survival instinct. So, it wants security, it wants peace, it wants comfort, it wants happiness. It has certain needs, certain wants. This may be associated to what its career is in life, what its goal is. It is, in a sense, very object oriented. It can be very materialistic in that sense as well, depending on how much ego you have. So understand that when you come into this world as a newborn, you are in essence this mind. That's what the ego is. The ego is all mind. You are this mind that has entered this world, and you have very, very basic survival instincts. This mind has no idea how to survive really on this planet, but if you're hungry, you will start crying. That's basically a survival instinct. So you rely on other minds to look after you, to care for you, to teach you how to survive on this planet. And over time, as you grow, this ego, this mind begins to learn and develop certain traits, certain values, it builds certain experiences that, in a sense, evolves this ego. This ego grows as it gets older, along with the physical body. And you learn that the world, you need to survive in the world. And if you're hungry, you need to feed yourself. And if you want something, you need to go get it. You need to earn a living, and you need to pay for it. Now you hear some people say that you should try and transcend your ego. And they may be right to an extent. After all, if your ego goes unchecked, it can become very overinflated in that sense. So you can have a very overinflated sense of ego, where it only becomes about you and you alone, and maybe your immediate family. You fail to see that you are part of a much larger system. And all you ever do is doing what you can to maintain your own physical body, to accumulate and accumulate as much as you can without any consequences. You do not think about the larger picture. You only think about yourself. So that's when the ego can become dangerous. It can lead to corruption. It can lead to dictatorship. And it can lead to wars. And what ends up happening is people start hating you. So you need to find that balance. And of course, this what I just explained happens very seldom, but it happens. It can happen. So you need to find a balance where you have to have an ego to survive on this planet. You can't do without it, but you need to consider that you are part of a much larger system that you are part of, and you need to work with the system. This ego needs to work with other egos in the system to maintain the system, to keep it running. You can't just do your own thing when you want. That throws the whole system into chaos. So you got to find that balance. And this is where your creativity comes into play. Because understand that this ego, in order to survive, it also wants to be creative. It can't help but be creative. And where does this creativity come from? Well, it's the mind, right? You are, as an ego, you are essentially your mind. Your whole life, everything you've learned, everything you like, dislike, everything that you've accumulated throughout your life is all built up in your mind. Your whole ego is your mind, essentially. And like the larger mind, like the mind of the universe, your local mind is creative in that aspect. After all, if you look around you, there's creation everywhere in the universe. There's so much creation. And the larger mind itself wants to create. There's creation everywhere, and since your mind is part of that larger mind, you have this innate need to create as well. And this is where you find a balance. This is where you want to live in harmony with the rest of creation. You want to use your creative talents to of course, maintain your survival. But at the same time, you get creative when you use your creativity to help others, to assist others, to bring them joy, to make their lives comfortable. You start to see that it's not just about you, it's about others as well. And your survival is dependent not just on you surviving on your own, but helping others survive as well. That is where you can get really, really creative. Maybe you want to create a painting, you want to create a song, write a story. That's how you express your creativity. And that's where the ego becomes less about itself. It becomes less selfish and more selfless. So yeah, that's all basically I wanted to cover about the ego.